Everyone. My name is Shinei. I'm one of the assistant teachers here. This is your first time here. I'll introduce also Mushin, who's the senior teacher here. So here we are, Zen Buddhism. How did we get here? The name of the game in Zen Buddhism is presence. And this practice of presence has been passed down. The Zen lineage we can follow all the way back to India. And, do we really know that? No, but we have this list of names that we chant. Sometimes it's in our chant book, a full list of 58 names of teachers coming from India through China, through Japan, and then to America. And I'm the second generation in America, well, kind of the third. My teacher's teacher came from Japan. Our teacher's teacher came from Japan. It's just really interesting to think about how did we all come together, these Americans here, practicing this tradition that has come from India and been passed down through all these countries somehow. And this chant we just chanted is from Pali, which was the original language that the Buddha's teachings were written down in. And it's not a traditional Zen way of chanting. In this last generation, my teacher Chosen found that she had a lot of affinity for the Theravadan tradition, which is more in Southeast Asia and India. And she brought in a lot of Theravadan teaching and chants into our lineage. So very interesting. Who's there? I wanted to talk about this, use this phrase that I saw on a car license plate a couple days ago for my Dharma talk tonight. And the phrase was, watch for wildlife. Watch for wildlife. And when I read it, I thought, oh, watch for wild life. That's how it came in. And there's different ways we can read this phrase. So the first most obvious one is what it probably intended. It had a big deer on it, which is watch for wildlife, for wild animals. But you can also think of it more generally as the plants, as the sky, as the earth. And this is a really good practice instruction to turn our attention towards the natural world and to absorb its wisdom. And I encourage all of us to go outside more. And, particularly if you're feeling depressed or anxious or caught or tired. Sometimes when I don't have time to take a nap, I go outside and I put my head down right on the earth and I just take a full breath. Or even if I don't mind getting my clothes dirty, I'll put my whole body just right on the earth. And that is such a healing practice. When we get caught up in our minds and our life problems, to then open to the sky. The sky is always free. It's always fresh and it's always beautiful. Even when it's pouring rain. Actually, we went on one of the practice offerings that we've started is going on a once a month Zen walk where we practice mindfulness meditation during walking for a couple hours, and it was slightly raining. And at one point I had to stop and do a few yoga practices, and one thing we did, this is a great way to open to the sky, is you just do it right now. Just lift your arms up and look up and take a deep breath. Yeah. So we can get that abundant energy. Even when there's a roof, we can feel that abundant energy of the sky. And she looked up and, it was slightly raining, so we would think, oh, it's not a nice day, right? And she saw for the first time in her life that she could follow the trajectory of a drop of water. And how beautiful it was, just glistening, just. So if we start to notice wildlife, there's so much there to heal us, to teach us, to relax us, and so much beauty. So then the way I heard it, notice wildlife. There's a couple of ways that you can interpret that too. One is just life is crazy. It's crazy. I mean, all these people going all these different directions, and everyone's having their own thoughts and their own story about what's going on. Meanwhile, the trees are just over there, doing their thing. The rocks are just sitting down there. Rocks are great Dharma teachers. We never know what's going to happen when we wake up in the morning. We might think we know. Like Sekyo recently shared this insight that she had thought for years that what she wrote down on her to-do list was actually her day. That was her day. But then she realized, wait, that has nothing to do with my day. That's just a to-do list. I mean, it has something to do with the day, right? It's part of the day. And the plan is part. And, have you ever seen those fast motions of like cities? Yeah, the whole earth, and all the wide, just complex, you might say chaotic, unpredictable, mysterious. How does this all even happen? And then the wildness of our own thoughts and our own emotions. And that can be like, we could look at that kind of negative, or like it's kind of scary, or it's kind of, crazy. But we can also look at it with like, wow, this is amazing. And it can relieve, you can even say appreciate wildlife. We don't have to, and also we might not actually even be able to. It's out of our control. It's like hands off. Okay, just let it. And including our own minds, right? That's part of the practice of Zazen, is we sit down and we realize actually how little control we have even over our own bodies and minds. We don't choose what comes up. We don't choose what body sensations want to arise, what thoughts want to arise, what sleepiness wants to arise. And so a big part of our practice is practicing that. A word one of our ancestors used was non-interference. He said non-interference in the matter of oneness. oneness is doing its thing. It's, it's so vast, it's so complex, and we are a part of that oneness. We are that oneness. And through this practice, which is really radical, actually the practice of sitting still. Human beings don't really do that. Have you noticed? They don't really do that. It's natural to move, and it's natural for the mind to move. So that's also something we can watch as our tendency to have an expectation about how our meditation or how our life should go. And take a step back from that. So this practice of sitting still, we say, okay, I heard one teacher, Kobun Shinei once say, Zazen is what we do when we are just like, whoa, whoa, what's going on? I just need to take a seat for a moment. You know, like, take a deep breath and like, what is going on here? To allow it. Louder? Okay. Is there anyone who couldn't hear me?
It gets hard.
It gets hard back there. Okay. So it's not wrong for the mind to move, and it's not wrong for the body to move. It's normal, it's natural, it's how human beings are, it's how the mind works. It's not wrong for the emotions to move, that's how they work. And also there's something really essential to be learned from this practice of stillness, this radical practice of just stopping. There's this beautiful sutra from the original teachings of the Buddha. They're called the Pali Canon, the Theravadan teachings. There was a serial killer named Angulimala who became a disciple of the Buddha. And he supposedly he would take the fingers of the people that he would kill and he would put them around his, he made a necklace out of them. And he wanted 100 of them. And he was like at 99 and he was looking for one more finger. And he was in the town where the Buddha was teaching. And everyone said, Angulimala is coming. He's going to kill someone. We need to hide. Everyone come and hide. And the Buddha said, no, I'm not going to hide. So this is another instruction here for our Zazen practice. I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to distract myself from actually what's going on in this body-mind. I'm going to have the courage, the openness, the curiosity, the love to really feel what's here. There's a saying, the way out is in. So usually human beings are always running away. And this practice calls us to stay in it. And it can be quite uncomfortable. And it can be quite beautiful and pleasurable. Everything comes and goes. And so he's walking out and Angulimala sees him and he's like, there he is, I'm gonna get him. And so he starts running after him and he's running and he's running and he's running and he's realizing that he keeps running but he can't catch the Buddha. it's like he just stays the same distance away. I had this experience when I was swimming with dolphins. I had this amazing experience swimming with a pod of like 50 dolphins. And every time I would try to get close to it, it somehow, it would just stay the same distance away. Like it was very interesting and didn't even seem to be moving. And yet it had some kind of perception that I didn't have, and where so eventually he says, "Stop!" He is yelling, "Stop!" And the Buddha looks back, he says, "I have stopped. It's you who hasn't stopped." So what does it mean to stop? Take a deep breath. And to actually be exactly who we are, exactly where we are, without needing to change anything. The truth is that most people don't actually know how to be present, I've learned. Maybe they know, maybe we all know. Yeah, I think that's true, we all know. But we've been so caught in the story for so many years that we've forgotten how to stay with it. So in our practice, first we do this kind of touch and go thing. We return to the present, we touch it, like you might have noticed when you're trying to pay attention to the soles of the feet, and then the mind goes back to the thinking. Or if you're trying to follow the breath in zazen, in meditation. And then we touch it again, and then we get caught up in the thinking. And we touch it again. And the more we practice that, the more we can learn to stay and enter another way of looking at this phrase, wild life. The wild life, the bare experience of life, the raw experience of this moment. So just take a moment and see if you can feel the sensations of whatever it is that's touching the ground or the mat or the chair. What is it that you feel there? Is there pressure? What are the sensations that let you know that the body is touching? You can explore the boundary of that touching. You might feel there's a way in which you can surrender your weight a little more to that touching. Maybe there's a temperature, warmth, or coolness. So we're touching into the raw texture of sensory experience. And we can do this with any of our senses. So now shift the attention to sound. Hear that car. What can you notice? What sounds can you notice? Can you hear the electronic noise of the screen over here or the audio? The subtle creaking. What's the subtlest sound you can hear? Is there a sound to the silence? Now bring the attention to the breath. Where can you feel the breath? Can you feel it in the nostrils? Can you feel it in the chest? Do you feel the touch of the clothing as the chest or the abdomen rises and falls? How about the sensations of the hands? How do they feel? Maybe there's moisture or dryness. What are the sensations that let you know you have hands? And so we could go on and on and on with this entering of the direct sensory experience. This is a really important part of practice. And there are levels, there are, you might say, depths, or there are subtleties and sensitivities that open up the more we do this practice. All of a sudden we notice, like, wow, I mean, so you can do it also with the visual field. Like, I never noticed those little tiny lines on my hand. Or like the weave of a fabric, you can see or on a tree, you know, with nature, right? You can notice these things that normally we go unnoticed, this miracle of detail. And why do we do this, right? Sometimes we can get in our practice like it's good to practice or I should practice, but we do the practice because it brings us ease in our lives, because it brings us freedom from stress in our lives, because it puts us in touch with what feels really satisfying in our lives. Yeah, smile there. So that's why when I said, you know, we walk around, we can make it a game. Let's see, can I pay attention for the whole thing, right? Because if we get too like, I must pay attention, it's the right thing to pay attention. Oh, I'm not paying good enough attention and I'm not seeing the subtlety and the depth, right? That comes in the inner critical voice. My practice should be something else. No, we got, wait, no, it's this. And it can be fun. Right? How many sounds can I notice? Can I notice 10 sounds? Like you might play with a child. You're teaching them mindfulness. We're teaching ourselves, and we have to be gentle with ourselves like we are with children. Because this is contrary to what most of society is doing. Most of society is always in the thinking mind and is very much oriented towards achieving something outside, beyond this. This isn't enough, right? This is fueled by this fundamental sense of lack. That as we practice, we notice more and more. Why am I dissatisfied? What is this? Why is it so hard for me to be present? So this is the prajna part of practice. So the entering the wild life, the raw life, that's the samadhi part of practice, the immersion, direct experience. And the prajna side of practice is inquiring. Prajna means wisdom. Samadhi means concentration or absorption, or immersion. I like that translation, immersion. So we start to investigate this. What is it that pulls me away from the present moment? Why do I feel stressed? What am I believing? What am I thinking about life? What am I adding onto life that, is it optional? So this is the investigatory side of practice, which can be very, very liberating. We can question everything. We can question, am I actually a human being? Is this actually today? What do I mean by today? What does it mean? What is this belief that I have to get something done? Do I have to get that thing done? Is it true? All these things that we think it and we say, it's true. We think it, it's true. She's like this, I'm like this, I have to do that. This is the way. We just are, led on by our thoughts. We're just like, drooling after them. It's got to be true. I thought it. It's got to be true. I thought it. No. Question your thoughts. This is the prashna. I'm going to see what time it is. That's another interesting investigation. What is time? What is time? Ben, what time did I start?
About 10 after.
Okay. And it's like a 40-minute talk? Half an hour?
Sure.
What's time?
We're here all night. It's interesting. I always find myself going back to the 3 aspects of practice. They're called the 3 trainings. And this was the first teaching of the Buddha, was the Four Noble Truths, right? There is this dissatisfaction. It gnaws at us. It leads us around. We find that we're always needing to somehow get something or change something or push something away. There is this, what is this? Dukkha, we called it, friction with how things are. You can pinpoint, the second noble truth is, this is caused by resisting and grasping at things. And so you can pinpoint suffering, what we translate dukkha as suffering or dis-ease or unease. It's in exact proportion to how different reality is from how we think it should be. So whatever that space is how much we suffer, is how much we are dissatisfied or at ill ease. And then the third observation, noble observation or noble truth, was that that's possible to stop doing that resisting, that it's not like we don't change things in our life. That's a misunderstanding. It's not like things don't change and we don't act. But this core dis-ease that is no, yes, no, yes. So you can watch that. That's a very interesting investigation in life, just to watch that yes and no that's going on almost continuously for most of us and get really curious about it. That his observation, what happened for him, what Buddhas, what human beings have verified time after time, what we can verify for ourselves, is that tendency, it can fall away, that we can stop doing that. And we all have tasted moments of that, of feeling completely like this is all that I've ever longed for. This is complete. This is already. Maybe you can taste that now. And then this path. So that's what I said. I always find myself coming back to. He said, here's the way you can stop doing that. You can practice samadhi, entering the wild, actual life. You can practice the right view, the prajna, the investigating what is actually true. And with this confidence that this is possible to uproot this tendency of dukkha. And the third is the sila, which is often translated as precepts or ethics. And I like to translate it as love. So these three trainings, you could say these three aspects of our practice or of our spiritual life are all very important. And if we get too caught up in samadhi, then we can lose touch with prajna and with sila. You might notice that if you get too strict with yourself about this is the right way to practice, then you have to bring in sila, this loving attitude towards yourself, this expansive heart, not just towards yourself, but towards everyone and everything that you encounter. There's a beautiful quote by Francis Lucille, who's an Advaita Vedanta teacher, and he said that true meditation is a universal yes to everyone and everything. And we can apply that in our sitting practice. So when sleepiness arises, yes, you are welcome here. When resistance arises, yes, you are welcome here. What are you? Why don't you sit down, Like when a good friend comes, you invite them, or even when just a stranger shows up at your house, you might, once you think, okay, you're safe, you might invite them to sit down, right? So we have to verify you're safe. That's a process of verifying that even these difficult emotions that we might feel are safe, or these body sensations are safe. Then we can invite them to sit down, and we can say, hey, you're welcome, and tell me about yourself. What are you like? And so if this is an emotion or a thought or a sensation, we can start getting curious about it and bringing love towards it. Okay, I think I might stop there. I have a poem, and to invite us into the wildlife, the wilderness, you can call it too. It's called A Summer Day by Mary Oliver, and you could also call it a spring day or a fall day. Probably a spring day today. Who made the world? Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, the one who has flung herself out on the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down. See the things you can notice. I didn't know that. Does a grasshopper move their jaw back and forth instead of up and down? Who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. My dog does that too. This is another practice we can embody. You can try this. What is it to be a grasshopper? Any object, any being we see, we can try it on. We can get out of ourselves. What's it like to be a cushion. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know, though, how to pay attention. This is one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves and others, to learn how to pay attention. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down into the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Do you ever allow yourself a whole day just to stroll, just to be idle? Are you able to do that? If not, why? Tell me, what else should I have done? The laundry? Our mind tells us many things we should have done. Right? Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?